Thank you for being here. We'll call the meeting of the South Carolina Public Charter School District September 14th, 2023 to order. Randy, would you please give the invocation?
Sure. Let's pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for the day that you've given to us. We thank you for your many blessings. And even as we pause today to remember that day earlier this week of 22 years ago where so many lost their lives in Washington, D.C. and New York City and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And Lord, we would just pray that you would be with the families of those who perished that day. That you would continue to give them grace and comfort. And Lord, we pray that you would be with us as we move through this agenda today, that you would give us wisdom, that you give us clarity of speech and clarity of thought, and that we would do our best to serve the students that you have entrusted to us at this district. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The South Carolina Public Charter School District authorizes, champions, and supports the creation and advancement of innovative K-12 public charter schools that provide access to academic opportunities for every student in South Carolina to reach their fullest potential. Randy, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Butcher.
Here.
Mr. Butcher is present. Mr. Gilchrist.
Present.
Mr. Gilchrist is present. Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Miller is present. Mrs. Mosseller is unable to join us today. Mr. Page is present. Mr. Payne.
Present.
Mr. Payne is present. Dr. Pope.
Here.
Dr. Pope is present. Dr. Strickland.
Here.
Dr. Strickland is present. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We need a motion for the approval of the agenda for today, September 14th, 2023.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We also need a motion to approve the minutes for the August 10th, 2023 meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All right, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. None opposed. Thank you. Marlene, are there any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, there are.
Thank you. Mr. Counsel, are we in need of an executive session?
Yes, sir, for litigation update related to CAA litigation.
Okay, all right. Is everyone in favor of going into executive session?
Sir. Sir.
All right. We will be as brief as we can, and then we will come back. Thank you. We're going into executive session. Call the meeting back into public session. We went into executive session to receive a litigation update from our counsel. No action was taken. Dick Michael, the July 2023 financial report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. At the end of July, we expect 91.67% of the budget to be remaining. We are currently at 91.22%. On the first page of my financial report, we're looking specifically at district-wide revenues versus expenditures. For the month of July, we had $13,772,504 in revenue, $13,463,858 in expenditures, for a net income of $308,646. On the next report, we are looking specifically at district office revenues versus expenditures and change in fund balance. We had a total revenue of $319,164, total expenditures of $357,317, for a net loss of $38,152, which brings our projected fund balance to just over $2 million. I do want to point out that there was a decrease in revenue that we projected, because revenue for state aid to classrooms is based on projected enrollment numbers, and for our new schools, that did not include add-on weightings. So with our 5-day funding update here in September, we do expect revenue to increase. Revenue also does not include the 2% that we withhold off of Palmetto Excel, because they have not received state funding yet. All right, on my next report, this is a breakdown of expenditures by department. For leadership, there was total expenditures of $127,295. Sponsor performance was $57,120. Support and implementation was $80,069. And then financial services and operations, $92,833, for total expenditures of $357,317. And then on my final report, this is a breakdown of all state funding that we received for the month of July. I do want to point out that between the two funding sources for state aid to classrooms, the general fund portion and the EIA portion, a total of $16,176,467, which equates to 97.4% of state revenue. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my July report.
All right, thank you. Before we move forward, we'll need a motion.
I move that we accept the financial report as explained.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Are there any questions for Nick?
Can I ask one?
Mr.
Just
Butcher?
curious, so on the income statement, so the second one, the only thing I notice, so I guess it's benefits. It looks like there's almost a 40% change in benefits. Do you see that 38.96? Do you see that one?
Are we looking at district office?
No, it's the page behind the cover page, that's, I think
so
this is the.
district-wide.
Yeah, district-wide. So it just looks like benefits are up by 40%.
Compared to last year, yes. And that's
Yeah.
because we've increased staff capacity.
Yeah.
I believe last year at this time, we were at about 24 employees. We're currently at 34.
Okay, makes perfect sense, that's fine, just want to make sure I asked.
Yes.
And then, I know it's early, it's September, however, there will be an audit someday, so, are the plans at this kind of point to proceed like last year with the same company? And, I mean, have you even kind of thought that far ahead?
Yeah, that's actually going to be part of my financial update.
Okay, very good, thanks. See, we were thinking. There we go.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor of the motion to accept the financial report for July 2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There's none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is Charleston Advancement Academy closure. Mr. Counsel, would you update us?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, we had a hearing in the Administrative Law Court on the merits of CAA's appeal of the board's decision to revoke the charter as of June 30th, 2023. We did not receive a decision, but anticipate receiving one, hopefully in fairly short order from the court. It will be a written opinion from the Administrative Law Court, so it will take some time for the court to issue a decision. At the hearing, we informed the court that CAA continues to operate, even though the Court of Appeals order stated that the temporary stay of revocation has been lifted. The court did decline to take any action yesterday on that issue without a motion, which I suspect we will be filing in short order. The district has informed the school that it is operating without authority at this time, and the South Carolina Department of Education has provided a similar correspondence to the school that it is operating without authority. And so at this time, given this new issue, what staff and I are recommending is that the board make an appropriate motion that would authorize the superintendent to take the steps that are necessary to ensure that CAA closes as required by the law and pursue the accountability of individuals responsible for or complicit with any violations of law by CAA.
Okay, thank you. Before we move forward, we would need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I would move to direct and authorize Superintendent Neely to take the steps necessary to ensure Charleston Advancement Academy closes as required by the law and to pursue accountability of individuals responsible for or complicit with any violations of the law by Charleston Advancement Academy.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Does the board have any questions? Having none, I'll call the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Policy Subcommittee report, Mr. Page.
Mr. Chairman, the Policy Subcommittee met briefly this past week and looked at finishing up the project before we would hand it over to the full board. Our goal is to meet once again in early October to finish our work and then to give it to the board for their input and move it through the process, beginning with our October meeting.
Okay. Are there any questions for Randy? All right, thank you.
No, and Mr. Chair, I would just add, one of the comments that I made in that meeting, and you'll see in, I believe, the manual when it comes back, is the addition of a line that says something to the effect of parents are a child's primary caregiver, and then a strict scrutiny clause that says that no public official may interfere with that except under compelling governmental interest and in the least restrictive means possible. So that was one of my suggestions, and then I think I have a couple of other ideas that would serve better as a resolution from this board affirming parental rights in education. So I think that'll be a conversation that'll be had when we meet again in October, and then probably something that I would bring before the board after that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Superintendent? Your report, sponsor performance update, John Payne? Or do you want to go first, Chris? Okay, all right.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees. I'm going to give you some updates from my division, sponsor performance. First I'll start with the work that we've been doing in our authorization department. On August 29th, we hosted our first of the 23-24 school year Charter Academy. And as part of that, we were honored to have Dr. Trevor Ivey from Liberty STEAM come in and be one of our presenters, as well as Allison Hanna with Halligan and Mahoney, who provided training on FERPA and FOIA to our participants. At that event, we had the schools that you approved, of course, back in April, excepting for Carolus, because as you know, Carolus had a fast-track opening. They are open and currently serving students right now. But at that meeting, we did have our 6 schools green, both Simpsonville and Taylor's. Movement School was there, PD Hall, Sea Island Heritage Academy, and Summit. And again, with large support from Liberty STEAM in providing their expertise to that event. At that event, a variety of topics were covered. Next slide. There we go. Thank you. So at that event, we talked about we went over the pre-opening conditions that these schools will have to meet between now and next summer. We talked about recruitment, enrollment, marketing, and social media. That was Dr. Ivy's presentation. Ms. Hannah talked about FOIA and FERPA laws. We also presented information to them on finance and facilities, and in our follow-up evaluation on a 5-point Likert scale, participants rated our training at 4.8. We will have our second charter academy in November and then finish it out in January, right about the time that pre-opening conditions become due. So that's a word about that department. In terms of some data and accountability updates, the department has published the SC Ready, which is of course English Language Arts and Math, as well as SC Pass, which is science. That was publicly released on September the 5th and is on now the department's website. That is the universe of all students who took Pass or SC Ready last year. It will not be the same when the report cards come out on either the 10th, which we believe that's going to be now the date, or the 15th of October. When the report cards come out, the data that will be included the data that will be shared will not include, for example, students who were not continuously enrolled. It's not really fair to hold a school accountable for children who have not spent most of their school year there. So when you look at assessment data and look at report card data, they will slightly vary. Assessment data, again, is the universe of all test takers. The report card has some exclusions, one of those being for students who maybe moved in January or February, still took the test at that school, but the school is not held accountable for it. What the data, though, from SC Ready and SC Pass suggest is that English is improving overall, but regrettably math is not doing as well, and that's a statewide trend that we see in all of our data. After the public release, we will analyze that information and we will be sharing that with you at a subsequent board meeting. At our fall leaders meeting here in November, we will be launching our AFO index. This is our new district accountability system where we will be talking with schools on how we will hold them accountable. A being for academics, F being for finance, and O being for organization operations. Charter goals, how well students are doing, how well schools are closing achievement gap are some of the measures for the academics. Of course, the financial would be ensuring that they have sustainable budgets, that they're not that they have requisite amounts of cash on hand, those kinds of things. They're meeting their audits. If they do get findings, that they're able to get those corrected. Organization operations is going to look at things like teacher certification as well as board governance. Are they posting agendas timely? Are they posting meeting minutes to reflect those agendas as well? So we will be launching that, and we'll speak more to that at next month's board meeting. We have also been spending a lot of time to enact more proactive supports for our schools at the beginning of the school year. So we did note a number of schools that did not have EFA codes for students. And Dr. Strickland and Dr. Pope know very well, if you don't have an EFA code, you don't get the money. So we provided that feedback because that is one, if not the most critical fields in Power School, because it denotes how the student is to be funded. And so that when Nick talks about the weights, that's the mechanism to say it's a child with a disability or a child in poverty, so on and so forth. We also saw some issues and provided proactive support with 9GR cohorts. What that is it just registers when a student enters high school for the very first time, and that's how all of the rest of the graduation rate. So if that's not right, it's going to offset other metrics within that school's data. Overlapping enrollment is another one, and that's where, for example, a student may be enrolled in one course and another course at the same time, and that's pretty common as schools are setting up master schedules and bell schedules and that sort of thing, but we provided proactive responses to our schools to get those cleaned up, as well as work with our schools on issues related to master scheduling. We have begun developing processes and procedures with respect to our IT, so we have increased our RAM here at the district office. We have, working with our Canty partners, installed more firewalls, which increases our IT presence. Canty is on site now 2 days one week, 3 days the next week with respect to our IT infrastructure, so we appreciate our continued partnership with them. And again, we're working to scale up our network infrastructure. And what I mean by that is ensuring that we have the bandwidth here so that our internet is not interrupted with the amount of volume we have because we have grown in staff and grown in schools. And next slide, I think that is it for me. So if there's any questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to respond.
Are there any questions?
Just one. So if I was asked on the street and someone said, how are charter schools doing today compared to how they were doing before the pandemic, is there a statistic that I could find on our website that you could direct me to, or are there numbers that you could provide to me so that I could say, either using MAP or using state test scores, on average, charter schools in our district are here, up or down, compared to where they before the pandemic?
Yes, sir. So we have district level data already generated for last year's data when the report cards come out. What the data suggests for last year is that as a district, we outperformed the state in virtually every metric that the department looks at. So we outperform in English language arts for SC Ready, as well as end of course examinations, math, as well as Algebra 1, science, biology, U.S. history, Constitution. So we generally outperform. We will get once the embargoed data for the report cards are released on October the 10th, we'll have a better sense of how we are doing this year compared to last. The data does look as though English is getting higher for not only our district, but for all schools and districts and the state. Math is one that we're really, as a state, not doing as well, so we will be diving into that data. Last year, though, the data indicated that we were outperforming the state with respect to mathematics and English.
Yeah, not just outperforming though, but is the trend going up between 2019 and 2021, 2022?
Yes, sir.
It is going up.
Yes.
So that's significant because nationally it is not.
Right.
Nationally, scores are down. Okay. Thanks.
Now, I would be unsurprised to see if we don't take a drop in math, just because that's as I was looking through some of the embargo data, that's as well as the information that is publicly available, that seems to be the trend for this current school year, or the assessments that were taken last school year.
And does that hold in MAP as well? Are our MAP scores higher 2021, 22, whichever it was taken, compared to 2019?
I will have to look at that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I will certainly happily look at that and find that answer and respond.
Okay, because I mean, you can see what I'm interested in
Right,
is
yes,
where
sir.
were we before the pandemic and where were we after? Because I think that's a conversation that is ongoing nationally about where schools are, because again, overall, the scores are down.
Right.
So it would be, I think, significant and an item of particular interest if our scores are not. Thanks.
Absolutely, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Nick, Finance and Operations update, please.
Good morning again. I only have one update, and it's related to the audit. We're at the critical time of year where we are elbow deep in the audit. We probably performed about 75% of the entire audit process to date, and that was performed prior to June 30th. As of right now, we have all state and federal revenue and expenditures reconciled. We're working on finalizing the trial balance by analyzing self-balancing accounts, and we anticipate audit field work to begin October 2nd. That's my update.
So same company as last year?
Same company as
Yeah,
last
okay,
year.
okay.
We are way ahead of schedule compared to the last 2 years, so we're in a really good spot.
Great, okay, thanks.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
One issue we tend to have every year are all the individual schools have we done anything between last audit and up to now to enhance the perception that audits are important and they need to have them in on time?
Yes, we've communicated the same audit timeline as last year, October 15th for our schools. So they do have a full understanding that it is due to us October 15th.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Support and implementation update, Emily Baker.
Good morning. I have four programmatic updates for you today, just a little bit of background knowledge and to share some of our recent happenings with you. The first is enrollment. Rihanna Smith tracks our enrollment and provides that to our leadership team, or excuse me, our alignment team each month. So when we ran the enrollment data for our entire portfolio on August 31st, we were sitting at 18,488 students. So at the bottom of the slide here, I have some highlights for you of schools that have grown over 20% in their enrollment from the spring. Some of those, Butler and Liberty STEAM, are included because they have added additional grade levels. And then you can see the remaining schools did a good bit of work this spring and summer to market and up their enrollment to help with their sustainability. Weather reporting. Good old hurricane, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick, before weather. So that figure, 18,488, is that the highest that the district has ever had?
It's the highest that I have seen for enrollment,
No.
yes.
No,
18,488.
not. When we had virtual schools, we were over 20,000.
I see, okay.
Right.
Thanks for the clarification.
Just quickly, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, you may or may not have this, but as far as 18,488 students go, do you know roughly, or does anybody know roughly where that puts us in the state?
So our
as far as the size of districts?
Right, so our WPUs is up to 48,798 as of this morning.
Okay,
I'm not sure where we rank.
English?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, our weighted pupil unit.
Okay,
so
thank
we have
you.
18,000 butts and seats, and
Okay.
each of those students have different weights. So
Gotcha.
the weighted unit is 48,000. I don't know where that ranks. Sixth.
Sixth.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, weather. Hurricane Idalia kind of brought us back to our weather reporting system. So I just wanted to share that with you. Dr. Mills is our resident weatherman, and Mr. Finley is our resident communication website guru that helps us in weather reporting. That's data and information that we want to get to our students and families in real time as much as possible. And so recently with the hurricane, we did have a good bit of school closures. Those, I'm going to walk you kind of through how that process is, and then we get that on our website for communication to the public, and so that our staff is aware as well to field questions. But essentially, when a school level decision is made pertaining to weather-related closures, though that school at that time submits a Google form. That Google form goes to Dr. Mills. He looks at it 24/7 during that time frame, and they truly do report all through the night. So once we receive that Google form, he has to report to the State Department via a form stack in real time as well. For a traditional district, that's simple. When they make that one decision, they do that one quick form stack. For us, we do them quite often. So it's a busy time. I monitor that Google form alongside Dr. Mills to share the closures and those updates with Josh Finley. Josh Finley then takes that information and reports it to our website. So if you visited our website during that Hurricane Idalia time, there's a pop-up, and then you can see in real time which schools have closed and what those closure dates are. At the end of the school year, we must submit to the State Department a comprehensive report for all of the school closures for the entire school year. So at the bottom, you can see the closures that happened on August the 30th and August the 31st in response to Hurricane Idalia. The piece that I want to show you, or to educate you on a little bit here, is the difference between an e-learning closure and a school closure. Okay, so to date we have 32 state-approved e-learning sites. In response to COVID, the State Department now has allowed schools to apply to be part of an e-learning cohort. Once they are state approved to be in an e-learning cohort, they are allowed 5 closure dates throughout the year for students to pivot to virtual for things like hurricane, flooding, maybe a water main break, those types of things. So that's where the reporting comes in through Dr. Mills. So 32 of our schools are currently state-approved e-learning sites, so those e-learning closures counted as school days, okay? A closure is also an option if the school closes and they're not an e-learning site, or they deem that it may not be safe to operate in e-learning, even if they are a state-approved e-learning site. Those closures do not count as school days, and they will be made up. That's why schools have kind of those 3 built-in makeup days in their original calendars. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of how we do weather reporting. Luckily, the recent hurricane has made a turn, so Hurricane Lee is not in our forecast. Next is a 23-24 SRO update. School resource officers, this again is a bucket of Dr. Mills. We currently have 19 schools. There's 18 listed here, but since this has been published, we do have our 19th school on board, which is PD, Math, and Science. And we have those SROs are being provided to our 19 schools from 13 departments across the state. Okay, so just to give you an update, this time last year, we had 13 SROs. So while it's not 100%, which I know is Superintendent Neely's vision and dream, we do have schools that are continuing to onboard and are provided SROs by their local departments.
Thank you for this update. Appreciate that.
No problem. And then finally, we are wrapping up this coming Monday. We'll wrap up our year 1 site visits. So pre-opening conditions, as you know, our schools go through, and our multiple staff members and teams support schools through those pre-opening conditions in year 0. Then once they open, we visit those sites within their first 5 days of school. So recently it's been a combination of Dr. Mills, Kristen, Bridget, and I that are visiting those schools in those first 5 days. We have wrapped up 3 of those 4, and we'll visit Carolina Shores this coming Monday because they just opened this week. So very exciting things, very diverse, unique charters. We have everything from early childhood at Meeting Street. We did attend a virtual site visit, which was really cool for Dr. Mills and I to do with Carolus. Yesterday we were at Palmetto Excel and got to sit next to some really amazing adults, and I'd love to share stories with you about our day yesterday during lunch today. And then on this coming Monday, we'll wrap up those visits with our Carolina Shores site visit. And that concludes my update for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Strategic plan update, Emily Paul.
Good morning. So in addition to all of the work you just heard about from the other deputies, we also have been doing some strategic plan work. Some things I wanted to point out to you was our scheduling of our site visits to schools, and that includes the creation of a map that's being developed that will do a couple things. It will be a map of our schools. It will also have each of you on it in the areas where you are located in our state and the schools that are near you, as well as their local delegation, so that when we're scheduling these visits, we can reach out to you and say, we're in your neighborhood, we'd love to have you join us. We sat down with Superintendent Neely last week, and he will be visiting schools on Wednesdays, so just kind of keep that in your mind. Wednesdays will be school visit days. And as I said, as we get that schedule nailed out around the state, we will invite y'all to join us. We would love to have you kind of get in there with us, see our schools, our students, meet some of their board members and some of their local delegation members. Rihanna and Marlene are also in the process of developing an employee recognition program. So they've been working on this for about a month. They're going to do their first presentation to the alignment team coming up so that we can narrow it down a little bit more. And with the goal of having the final development by the end of the school year to implement next year. And then finally, in things that we completed or in progress this month, we did a survey of staff to identify national organizations and their areas of expertise that might help us set some benchmarks for all of the different things that we're doing so we can compare ourselves nationally. And then coming up next month, Emily will be going over our site visit tool with the staff. It's something that we developed about a year or 2 ago And we just want to refresh it with the staff so that when everybody is on site at schools, we have a simple form they can go into, take some notes on some key things we want to make sure we're paying attention to at schools. We will also be doing some slight revisions to our department plans to align to some of the work that we're doing with Workforce Centers of Excellence, which Superintendent Neely is going to tell you a little bit more about in his update. And then finally, Drew and Brad and Superintendent Neely and I will be planning a legislative day, and we're not sure quite yet what that looks like, but it's going to be a day where we just want to say thanks for all of the support from our legislature. Any questions for me?
Do you have an idea when we might get a copy of the schedule for site visits?
I will work with Miss Teresa and find out in your area when we plan to be there. We kind of section it out, so we're starting in the Low Country, and then we're going to move to the Midlands and the Upstate. So I'll figure out for you, and we'll be in your area and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, as soon as we can, the better, because I know you guys are busy.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Neely?
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you and the board, what I'd like to do is do the employee recognitions at the end of my report, because I would like to ask you and the board to come down and join the employees, if it's all right.
Okay.
Just a few top-line things. I want to go back to something that John spoke to earlier, and, you know, when we talk about the EFA codes, you know, our schools are leaving money on the table. And when we talk about math and ELA and how we're performing, well, I mean, the state is giving us money to invest in those children so that we can ensure they can reach their full potential in all of those academic areas. So it's important that we do the right thing on the front end when it comes to data, because that impacts funding, which then can impact outcomes for children. So we will continue to do what we need to do at the district level to train and help our schools ensure that their data is correct, because it has a rolling down effect and it impacts everyone in the entire district. You know, we continue to do our school visits. The staff has done a great job on the day one openings for our schools. Our last school to open up for this fall was Carolina Shores. They opened up earlier this week on the 12th. We had our Palmetto Excel ribbon cutting down in Charleston at Trident Technical College. We've been down in Jasper at the Meeting Street School, and we had a really great collaborative session with the board chair over in Florence with Dr. Ford at Florence Darlington Tech. And then we did some professional development training in coordination with Liz Michael and SCAZA. We want to continue to be the best we can be as leaders here at the district, and so you're going to continue to see us continue to invest in our people so we can continue to grow and perform at the level that you expect of your staff. We continue to do our weekly Kids First radio show every Tuesday at 5:30 on 100.7 The Point here in Columbia. And that, again, is an opportunity for us to really showcase our schools, our school principals, and school board members, and let them tell their story about their unique charter schools. On the podcast last week, if you didn't catch it, we had Valerie Dix, who is our Teacher of the Year. We had a great conversation with Valerie, and she's at Greenville Tech Charter High School, and just really had a great conversation with her. She's a very inspiring person. So if you haven't listened to it, it's on the social media page. You know, it's 15 minutes. We've reduced the podcast down to 15 minutes to increase the number of people that listen. People's bandwidth on listening to podcasts is very limited. People listen to a lot of different things, so we want to be relevant and quick. We've got the Kids First Conference coming up on September 26th and 27th. I know I've mentioned this before. I really would like to have your participation on one of those 2 days. It's going to be at the Convention Center downtown Columbia. I would invite you to come, even if it's just for a couple hours. Please work with Marlene and Emily on that so that we know you're there. Make sure you get signed up because we encourage you to be there. And then we're going to have our 3rd annual Fall Leaders Summit on November 14th, and that'll be here at the district office. And we have a really great program that we've put together so that we have relevant information and learning for all of our school leaders and board members who will be here. So we'll have over 100 people here. And again, I would ask for your participation where you can, so that you can build those personal relationships with our school leaders, thank them, and of course get to know other board members around the district. I got a little something. I was inspired last week at the SCASA Symposium. There was a retired Marine Corps colonel, Colonel Allen, who came and spoke. He had served some in Washington at the White House back in the 80s. He also worked at NASA after the Challenger explosion, and he gives just great. I've heard him twice now. He lives in Charleston, but he talks about leadership, but leadership through stories. And he told a story that really inspired me, and I'm going to share it with you because it relates to the work that we're going to be doing when it comes to meeting the needs of tomorrow's workforce here in South Carolina. I know Mr. Gilchrist just had a really timely article that he shared with me that he wrote recently in the paper, talking about the importance of work and education, and the way our state's growing and the way his chamber is going to be very active. But, you know, we're hearing from our state's leaders that they need our help when it comes to educating and training tomorrow's workforce. A few of the pictures from our recent visit over at Florence are on the screen. We also had a really collaborative session with our friends from Learn for Life. They flew out from California. You know, we have a school down in Charleston. They're already doing some things with workforce in Texas, California, and a few other states where they've opened up these workforce schools. So we're talking with them about what would that look like in South Carolina. But all of this speaks to change. And sometimes we're just slow to change. And we think we have to keep doing things the way they always have been done. I was talking with the chairman of the House Education Committee this morning, Chairman Shannon Erickson, and she was sharing with me, someone had mentioned, well, we've been doing it like this for 100 years. What's wrong with it? Why can't we keep doing it that way? Well, there's a lot of reasons why we probably shouldn't keep doing it that way. It doesn't mean we have to overhaul everything, but we need to be looking at things differently. So I wanted to speak a little bit about what I heard Colonel Allen say and how that relates to workforce. So I wrote up a little thing I just want to read to you. I want to first ask you a question, and this is open to everybody in the room. Does anyone know the dimensions of the train tracks, the width of train tracks in America? Does anyone know that? Okay, it's 4 feet 8 inches. And doesn't that sound a little odd to you? Like 4 feet 8 inches. How in the world did we come up with 4 feet 8 inches for the width of train tracks?
Just 2 horses together, right?
2 horses together, that's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So 2,000 years ago, the Romans created something that would change the course of history, the chariot. And what's really truly remarkable is that this invention didn't just revolutionize transportation. It also inadvertently gave birth to a standard that still influences our world today, the width of the chariot wheels. The Romans, in their wisdom, designed chariot wheels with a width of 4 feet 8 inches. Now fast forward to the present, and you'll find that this very dimension continues to shape our world. It's the same width that's used for train tracks, including the tracks that our trains run on here in America. The width of Roman chariot wheels at 4 feet 8 inches was not a random choice, as we just learned from Mr. Page. In ancient Rome, chariots were commonly used for transportation, and they left distinctive ruts in the roads of Europe and Great Britain. Sorry to my friends from Great Britain. These ruts were essentially the wheel tracks left by the chariots, which were designed to accommodate the width of 2 horses standing side by side. Centuries later, as railways were developed, engineers looked to these established rut widths for inspiration when designing train tracks. They found that the width of 4 feet 8 inches was not only practical, but also had historical precedent, as it matched the width of the chariot wheel ruts. So, the width of Roman chariot tracks, the ruts in Europe and British roads created by these chariots and the horses that pulled them, all played a pivotal role in shaping not only ancient transportation, but also the foundation of modern train track standards. But there's another fascinating aspect to this entire story. When railroads began to emerge in the U.S. in the early 19th century, many of the engineers and architects involved in the construction had received their training in Great Britain and Europe. These early American railroad engineers were well versed in the practices and standards of the railway industry as established in their countries of origin. As a result, they carried over those standards here to the U.S., and hence we built our train tracks with a width of 4 feet and 8 inches. This standardization allowed for the interchangeability of locomotives and rolling stock between regions and countries, because many of the early locomotives came from overseas. So because we had the same width of railroad tracks, they could easily fit onto the tracks and work in the United States. So in essence, America adopted the standard width for train tracks from Great Britain and Europe due to the expertise and influence of early engineers who had modeled the exact width that the Romans had used for their chariots pulled by 2 horses. Now, I could do a joke here about the 2 horses, but Josh, put up the next picture. So let's fast forward. So why is this historical tidbit relevant to our discussion today about workforce centers of excellence in South Carolina? Well, it serves as a powerful reminder that just because we've been doing something the same way for centuries, it doesn't mean we shouldn't consider creating a new path with different dimensions. This is especially true in South Carolina as we continue to embark on the technology of the future in partnership with companies like Scout Motors, who are going to create the EV cars of the future. And by the way, it's wider than 4 feet 8 inches. So as we embark on this journey, let us remember that innovation isn't about discarding the past, but building on it. We are building on the legacy of our traditional educational system to create something that is better and more relevant and that prepares our children fully for the jobs of the future. And together we can forge a new path to a brighter future for South Carolina's education and workforce. So at the end of October, we're going to be presenting a report to the General Assembly about the district's efforts on workforce centers of excellence. We own that name. These are going to be new charter schools, innovative charter schools, that have been built on models of the past, but they're going to look different for the jobs of the future. And it's all about giving traditional high school age students and adults, now that we've opened our first Workforce Center of Excellence through Palmetto Excel at Trident Technical College, every opportunity to be trained in the foundations of work, to get certifications, credentials, and to get a diploma and a job when they graduate from our schools. Jobs that are relevant to the new jobs of the future and those that will come after the Scout Motors. All that to say, a lot has happened in 2,000 years. And yes, we started out with chariots and horses, moved through with trains and cars. But what is the next thing that South Carolina is going to invent? Well, let our district be the district that creates the new schools of innovation, the new workforce centers of excellence that will go on to be trained and to learn how to be innovative to meet the needs of those future companies. So it's an exciting time for our district. I would just ask the board support the staff as they continue to develop this new model, this new way of looking at education, so that every child, regardless of whether or not they want to go to a college or not, has the foundations for work, both the technical, the hard skills, and the soft skills they'll need for the jobs of the future. Mr. Chairman, that's the end of my report, and pending any questions, that's the end of my brief.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chris? I'll just add that there was a picture in there that I had the opportunity to get in. Go back just a little. No, go back one more. Yeah, down there at the bottom. You see Chris, Dr. Ford at Florence Darlington Tech, myself. Schools like this have the capacity to change the educational model in this state. we took a tour after that picture was taken and the other one we were standing there with short sleeves on. We took a tour of tech. I've only been out there a few times. I got to learn some neat things. They've got it's called SIMT, Southeastern Institute of, I can't remember, it's SIMT. But they've got 3D printers there. They've got technological advances that, I mean, I don't think like this, that just kind of blew my mind. These are the incubators, if you will, of what exactly Chris is talking about, that will give kids, not everybody is going to want to go to a four-year school, and quite frankly, not everybody needs to go to a four-year school. Chris and I are old enough to remember way back in the 80s, going to a four-year school is what everybody it was programmed in their mind. You had to go to a four-year school. You had to get a college degree. Well, the trades, if you will, were kind of left on the side. Well, where has that left us 40 years later? We don't have enough plumbers. We don't have enough welders. We don't have enough HVAC people. We don't have enough people who can change your tires and change your oil. Well, where's that left us? It's left us in a lurch. He showed a picture of Scout that's coming out here. I believe it's Blythewood, if that's correct. Florence, just across the line from me, they have a EV battery company that's going to employ 1,100 people. The average wage, and we all know what the average is, just the average wage is going to be $65,000 a year. A lot of the people that they're going to need to employ are the people who are going to need to be coming out of these tech schools who have the training to walk right into this. Now, think going to a four-year school, USC's down the road. I'm not going to pick on them. Go to Clemson, wherever. A lot of people don't have the wherewithal, the financial means to do it. They come out of school with a liberal arts degree and they've got $100,000 in debt, $50,000 in debt, whatever it is. People can go to these trade schools. They can go through charter schools at trade schools. There's any different number of combinations where they can get a certification, they can get a certificate, they can get a degree, whatever it is that they need, and at 19, 20, 21 years old, no debt, and go straight into the workforce. I've got a friend in Darlington. His son, his daughter is very academically inclined, and she will do well. She's at USC, and she's going to do well in whatever she chooses. I think she's going to go in the medical field. Wonderful. His son is going to use his hands to make his living. He's going there now. He's doing an apprenticeship, and it's in the welding field, and he'll do that for 2 years. He's already got a job at Nucor Steel, and when he finishes his certification, he'll be about 20 years old. That kid, because he's a kid, is going to make $100,000 a year. $100,000 a year. That's the Scout. That's not the Roman chariot where our mentality was 40 years ago. That's the Scout of today. I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. I get excited when we think about this because this is going to change the educational model in this state. And I'm glad that you and your team are leading it, so I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Can I discover just a little bit more about the workforce centers for excellence? This services charter schools as well as other individuals?
So it's a two-prong approach. So first of all, these will be charter schools.
They will be.
These are charter schools. So we will be putting on technical college campuses across the state, starting in the eastern half of the state first, with locating a traditionally aged high school that is going to be called a Workforce Center of Excellence. And it will be focused on apprenticeships, on-site learning, so the students will learn on-site at local manufacturing and industry, the jobs and careers that they're interested in, with the track of getting a high school diploma, credentials, certificates, and then when they graduate, a job. That's for the traditionally aged high school student. Then on that same campus, we will have the adult charter high school, which we just opened our first one of those, which is Palmetto Excel at Trident Technical College. So you'll have, under the Workforce Centers of Excellence, that umbrella, one charter school focused on, high school age kids, another focused on adults, all with the same purpose of a high school diploma, not a GED, all with the purpose of getting them trained and educated in the workforce jobs of the business and industry located in that market. So for instance, at Florence Darlington Tech, we would have 2 of these schools under the umbrella of the Workforce Centers of Excellence, partnered with Otis Elevator, partnered with Sunoco, partnered with Harbor Freight. And these will be all jobs, not just like factory type jobs. These will be jobs where you're learning about logistics, C-suite, public relations, accounting. Any job that these companies have, that's what these kids are going to be taught and trained in, and then launch them into a job when they graduate from the high school. If they want to go to a 4-year school because they earned some dual enrollment while they were going to this charter school on the campus of Trident or Florence or Trident, that's fine. That's great. But at least give them the foundation so they can be employed the day they graduate from high school. What we're doing is increasing the value of a high school diploma and aligning it with the jobs business and industry say they need kids to be trained in, and adults. That's what this is all about. Yeah. It's really exciting, and no one else is talking about this. And so we came up with the name, we came up with the program, we now have a school operating, and all we're going to do is keep multiplying these across the state of South Carolina.
I've spoken to Kip. I've got some friends who work in they're lobbyists, basically. I know that's a 4-letter word, but they represent some of these companies that are around the state, and their clients, these industry, you're in the industry, you may be experiencing the same thing. They're begging for qualified, motivated employees. They need them. They're looking for them. This is an opportunity to provide them, to supply them. It's all supply and demand. The demand is high. The supply needs to catch up with demand to find an equilibrium point.
Yeah, by 2030, and this came from the Office of Fiscal Affairs at the state, Frank Rainwater gave a presentation last week at SCASA, and he showed a graph of the state of South Carolina with a map. The upstate is going to continue to see an increase in terms of workforce, but the rest of the state, the corridor, they see large decreases in workers, but yet the demand for workers is going to be great. So 2030 is really the key year. So that's why we have to start now, and that's why we're going to focus on those areas of the state that are poorest and help those people, be trained and educated for the jobs with the business and industry that are going to be, within those regions. Short story. So Palmetto Excel, our new adult charter high school, they have a grandmother, a grandfather, their adult child and grandchild who have enrolled at that school, all for the purpose of getting their high school diploma, and so that they can also get the job skills they need to better their life. Guys, if that doesn't inspire us to want to do this work, what will? That's what this is all about.
It is revolutionary. I know that a lot of people don't use that word much, but it's really going to be a game changer.
And I think it is very exciting. And as superintendent a number of years ago, I worked with a company in the upstate that moved into the upper end of Lawrence County. And, they, in different parts, and when they come from foreign countries, they certainly have a different education system where very early they divide and, they take their tests, as they would say, and they would either go in that track or the other, and it's actually not by choice. But I think the excitement is, and we have to overcome teachers not understanding that. You got parents or grandparents that remember textile mills that only a few of you remember. But it's not that tight, because if you go to these factories, which I've had to, or plants, they're clean. They're not the textile mill. So you have to sell, sometime teachers inside the building that think everybody needs to go to a 4-year. You have to sell parents, or especially now grandparents. I do not want them working in that environment. So it is very exciting, but we got to continue to sell it. It is something that these companies, excuse me, they furnish full scholarships in the megatronics. They do everything to get them, and they do that at a very early age as juniors and seniors in high school. So this is the thing, but again, we're going to have to work with parents and teachers and everyone else to understand that everyone doesn't need a 4-year degree, because that's a new concept, and it's not as easy as you think for that to happen. But that's what's got to happen to make South Carolina certainly a growth model for the United States.
Yeah, Dr. Pope.
I agree with all that's being said, but every career starts with a good teacher. Do we have any programs in our charter schools that encourage students to go into education? Like Sarah has programs in the schools, in the public schools, to encourage students to go into education. And I think it's something that's...
So we have the teacher cadet program.
Okay, we do have.
But I think that also is an opportunity, because that too, like private sector jobs that are needed in the workforce, we have public sector jobs that are needed in the workforce, such as educators and administrators, anybody that runs a school building. So I agree with you, that needs to be a track as well. These are not this is not vocational, this is not shop. This is different than what maybe we think about when some of us were in school. But you're exactly right.
There's a shortage now.
There is a huge shortage, and we see it every day. And we've got schools that can't fill their need. Every school is having trouble filling their needs in that respect. And then back to learning, I know when I was learning geometry in high school in 10th grade, it was a struggle for me sitting there in a desk for 50 minutes looking at a projector. For those of you that don't know what a projector is. And how amazing would it be, and this was one of the things we learned from our visit with the chairman over at Florence Darlington Tech, was we met a student and he's learning geometry because he's hands-on with these machines and the very products he's making. Like, that's how you teach kids. I mean, we can take the theoretical and the abstract and we can make it real for them. That's how we're going to teach. That's how we're going to learn. And that's what we're going to do here in the district. Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to call on the members of the board to join me down front as we recognize 4 of our employees. Emily Baker, Susan Howard, Jackie Snell, and Tracy Sweet. Please come forward. So each of these team members have reached the 5-year mark of tenure here at the district, and our greatest asset here in the district is our people. We don't have students in this building. We have administrators and people, and so I think it's important that when people reach certain milestones in their position as leaders here at the district, that we recognize them. And so we've got 4 very special people. Susan Howard couldn't be here due to another conflict, but I want to ask all of you to come up, and we're going to present you with a plaque. So y'all come forward. And the chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Just as a reminder, we will have lunch prepared and served today. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns, emotional outbursts, or anything else the board may have? All right, we're good. All right. Having completed our agenda, I will adjourn the meeting, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right.